I'd like to welcome all of you to the first Thursday of the month's Amherst Neighbors program series. I'm Carly Tartikoff. I'm a member of the Planning Committee. I'm here with, I don't know if Sandy's gotten on yet, but Larry is here. I don't know if Ken is here, Ken Bernstein. He's also one of the planners for our programs. And I want to thank Kay Lyster, who is here to make sure that the technical part of our program will go smoothly. Our presenter today, back for the second time, is Laura Lyster-Mensh. She is an American writer, podcaster, and activist, and she's been founding organizations to solve problems almost all her life, including 3 international charities. Laura is the author of 4 books and has produced 4 podcast projects. She's currently active as an end-of-life doula in her services as the death doula in residence at the Congressional Cemetery in Washington, D.C. In her presentation today, she's going to explain why writing our own obituary is an act of love and that it can be fun. And it will give you a chance to have the last word, as she says. Who wouldn't want that? Now, when not needed to save the world, she tap dances, studies Greek, digs up ancestry clues, and watches old movies. In full disclosure, Laura is my daughter. And with respect and admiration, I turn the mic over to you, Laura.
With respect and admiration and love, I accept the challenge. Thank you so much. This is so lovely because, of course, I grew up in Amherst and I feel like an Amherst neighbor, even though I live in Washington, D.C. now. My kids live down south with me here, and my husband and I live 10 blocks away from Congressional Cemetery, and that is why my voice is so more resonant than usual, because I am in the chapel of Congressional Cemetery, a really special place where I volunteer as an end-of-life doula, doing death education. And one of the things that I welcome people to do is write their own obituary. So I am very excited to share a very short presentation and then take your questions. The questions are always the best part. So I'll let my All right. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So as grim as it and weird as it may seem to be writing your own obituary, I highly recommend it because it isn't really about your being dead when you really won't be aware of what's going on. It's about living your best life. And I just want to tell you, I often speak to young people. And I had a very profound experience in this room, actually, doing a workshop on writing your own obituary. And people came on dates. These were all mostly young people. One of them came to me a month later and said that it changed her life. She made choices in her life because she didn't like her obituary. So she took the opportunity to make changes in her life so that her future obituary would be better. And that is the point of writing your own obituary, plus also getting the last word and doing it authentically to your own voice and character and values. So, as I said, I am the death doula in residence here at Congressional Cemetery, and that's a huge honor. But I also go anywhere in the city and help people with this and do presentations like this around the world virtually. It's a lot of fun. But why should we write our own obituary? It's the get in the last word, yes. But it's also getting it right. I am amazed at how many obituaries are wrong, and wrong in ways that can really actually be hurtful. And I think that by leaving the information for your obituary, if not your actual obituary for your loved ones, is a really important thing for this. It's the day you die and the day after you die. There's often confusion and pain and numbness. And this gift that you have taken care of this task of, what were your parents' names? Where were you born? Your kids don't know. So get it right. Make sure that the things that are in it are what are important to you. I think it's also important to have a voice that's clear and not clouded by the actual fact that you've died. It should be your clear voice. You can only do that if you write your obituary while you're still alive and kicking. You want to include what mattered to you, not the person who's sitting there in a funeral home writing it. And I think that's very important. And then also, like I said, making sure that you are living the life that you want to lead and that will be reflected in your obituary. It's a death awareness activity to do this, and you might learn some things about who you are. There's another reason why you want to do this. And it is because if you do not write your own obituary, someone else will. Let me read this. This is a very famous obituary. Sorry, I go back. In which her obituary said, she abandoned her children. She passed away and will now face judgment. Her children understand that the world is a better place without her. These are some angry kids. And, but the key is, I don't think that Kathleen Temlow wrote her own obituary. I'm pretty sure. So if you don't write your own obituary, someone else will. And you just got to hope that they like you. You do not want to leave your obituary to the angriest relatives. The angriest relatives are going to say bad things about other people as well, not just you. And you don't have to prove that you are a relative in most cases for an obituary, public obituary. Sometimes you do have to prove that you have some rights in the thing, but it could be anyone. So again, write your own obituary. Also, if you care about grammar, if you care about meaning, if you care about possible spelling errors or anything like that, I want to show you one example. This is a real obituary, and it said, she blew everyone away with her energy and youthful continence. It's a real obituary, and somebody did not get to look at that before it was published. So I do not think that you, friends, will make that mistake. Make sure that you write your own obituary so that some young person who does not know the difference between continence and other things about you, that's one example. I think I mentioned that sometimes our kids don't know who we are. They don't know what we did. They don't know what mattered to us. And I have noticed a pattern that women, especially, universally enjoyed cooking and cleaning and taking care of their children. So if that's what your kids think, they don't really know that much about you. They don't know about your relationships, your jobs, your accomplishments. They're going to remember that you cooked and cleaned. Don't let this happen to you, my friends. I think people think that there's some sort of rules on this, and there are no rules. Unfortunately, obituaries, sorry, obituaries do not have a lot of legality to them because the person has already died. So they're not legal documents. I think people think that they somehow are legal. They're not. There's also no right way. You can write in any kind of way you want in an obituary. There are some newspapers still where we put them. That's actually rare now, but you might want to put an obituary in a newspaper, or you might be working with a funeral home to do it. And so they may have some ideas of what is right or wrong, but the truth is most obituaries now, you get to pretty much self-publish them, and there's a lot of leeway. So no one gets to tell you that there's a right or a wrong way, unless you are publishing it in a format where it has to be a certain way. The other two rules I would say are that if you write your obituary and you do not share it with the right people, if you just put it in your stuff, it won't, nothing will happen with it. So that is a rule. And then also, you can do what you want. If you don't want to do this, don't do it. It's not, they're not going to keep you out of dying. You're like, you can't get in, didn't write your obituary. Not a rule. I think it's a great idea, but this is something that is your choice. I love this image. So there are no rules, but there are really amazing costs to obituaries. And here's how you know. This is, it's a couple years old, but this ad is still there, by the way. So on the Washington Post, the obituary page, this is the advertisement. What I see here is, what is the market for people paying for obituaries in the Washington Post? There are people who could consider a self-winding watch for $45,000. There's a lot of money in the obituary world. And I'm going to show you some other stuff about that in a second, but just keep in mind, if you've prepaid and you've taken care of all your other expenses and you want an obituary to be published, in a newspaper, you're going to need to budget for it, because unless you're, a $45,000 watch kind of person, and then it's not going to be a problem for you. But I just think that's hilarious. And here is the example I wanted to show you. This is a real obituary. I've blurred the details. One of my cousins, mom knows who this is, asked me to work with them on their mother's obituary. The first one, this one with 620 words on the left, that's the size, shape, and amount of words that full obituary that was written in, glorious detail on all the things that they wanted to say about their mom. And then they got sticker shock because it would cost over $2,000 to publish. And so they wanted some help with this. So I am a writer, so I offered to give them different versions. So I actually sent this with the actual words to my cousins. And I brought it down, I halved it to 306 words. I halved that, or, some fraction, carefully taking out words, it got it down to 926. And then the tiniest option, 116 words, which could have been anyone because it was so non-specific. In the end, my cousin chose the full obit, but they did that knowing that it mattered. The things that they wanted in that obituary, they wanted the original obituary, and they did it with full knowledge that they could have gone for, $789, but they decided it was worth it and it meant something. And I think as long as we know that we have choices and we know that there are going to be costs, that we can make whatever choice we need to make and we can afford. I need to distinguish obituaries for famous people and obituaries for most of us. There is a professional writer who writes these obituaries. I like putting Elvis and his daughter. Just a note here, Elvis's obituary which was in all the papers, mentioned all the gross details that their family would not have wanted to put in there, like how he died and all those things. You don't have choices. If you're really famous, the paper's going to do it, and they have a professional author who's going to do it. I've met them, and they do these years in advance before you die. But I also note that Lisa Marie, his daughter, her obituary was in video form. So, both famous, but things are changing in how these things work. And we don't have control if we are public figures. The main idea of an obituary is to say, who were you? And I want you to notice that this is a first person obituary. This person wrote their own obituary. And that is who they were. They were someone who spoke in the first person to the world after she died. She did it with wit and with specificity and completely literally in her own voice. And all obituaries are saying who you are. You can write them in the third person. You can, however you want to do it. But I find that most people who write their own obituaries do it in the first person. And it's funny. It's almost always humorous at some points. So if that appeals to you, the who were you in an obituary is really important. This is a chaotic slide. It's a bad slide. Everyone hates it. It's a terrible slide, but I have to show it to you because I don't want to take a half an hour going through all of these examples. But I just want to say that in the middle, this picture in the middle with the kind of unclear walkway out into water, if you have no plan, you do not choose an image for your obituary. You do not leave a digital file for your family that says obituary, you will get this picture in legacy.com, which is where most obituaries go now. When I see that, I think, oh, no plan. They had no plan. Not a good idea. These other ones are examples of things that I personally just find kind of interesting. I will point out two of them. One is the picture of next to the water scene where he peaked at 12. This man lived well into his life. He was an elderly man, but the picture in his obituary is a 12-year-old. So this is something that sometimes people do. They can't find a formal picture, or they just don't like any other picture. And so they peaked. That's why I call this the peaked at 12 phenomena. Find a more recent photo is my advice. I also find a lot lower left that look like mugshots. Probably not a good look. Please find a picture that doesn't look like a mugshot so that this isn't what you end up with in your obituary. I have noticed at the bottom left next to that a lot of men have photos in hats. These are not photos, formal photos. These are photos that somebody found in Facebook and put on their obituary. I just feel it in my heart. And I also love, this is my personal favorite, is when people use what is clearly a dating app profile. Bottom middle. These are people who are smiling, not like an obituary photo, but they clearly were dating. And so someone scraped their best picture off their dating app and put it in their obituary. And someday, if you want me, I'll send this slide to you so that you can have it. But I just think it's good to have a plan. And on the far right are people who had a plan. Although a lot of them are women who are wearing hats, but it's different. What do obituaries include? So you already know this because you read obits, but I'm just going to tell you that most of the time you're filling out a form. And I, as a death doula, have forms. This is the form I use. And I sit with people and help them fill it out and then write it up, in a form. But basically, you're taking, certain facts about you, and they're really basic. Who, when, who are your people? What's important about you, where your body will be. That's a big element of an obituary. And then how mourners can gather or support. I need to explain that there's actually something called, and I'm sure everyone remembers this. There are obituaries. There are also death notices. A death notice is going to give you some of this information. This is how you find out about a death, and you find out where the funeral is. But in these times, now that most people, 60% of people are cremated, most people are having their memorial or funeral some distance from when they die. So full obits are more common than death notices, and death notices are expensive. So these are little trends that are going on. But this is generally what you want to include, and you don't have to kind of come up with that out of your head. There are forms online. I have a form. Everyone has a form. You can gather the information and then write it. I believe there's only one wrong way, and that is not bothering. Like I said, it's a choice. You certainly don't have to feel another pressure in life to do this unless it's kind of fun. But they can be anything. They can be long or short, funny, brutally true. There's a lot of those. Just the facts. They could be for posterity. I've noticed that, and excuse me, but generally, gender-wise, people end up being a little different. And there are certain trends I see in that based on gender, on what people include in their obituaries. Have someone read it before you give it, you finalize it to make sure that it's what other people would think about you. Don't just write it and not get feedback. And I'll tell you why, because a lot of people just list it like some people list their accomplishments, their jobs, instead of their people. And some people do all their people and not the things that were important to them. So try to balance it out. You can tell lies in an obituary. Have at it. I mean, there's no reason, there's not really fact checking unless you're really well known. I don't advise it because it's going to go into the historic record, and why, like, if at the end of life you can't be honest, well, I don't know. But yeah, there are a lot of lies. I also don't, I would say I don't recommend, but some people need to list everyone they've ever known. So you can go with very little detail or a lot of detail. You can do this in any way you like. I think it's about you personally. Where does an obituary go? So it used to be you would go to the funeral home. They would gather the information from you or the person who came to the office. They will write the obituary and they will send it to the papers. And these days it's changed a lot. It's even if you do it through the funeral home, it's probably going to go to legacy.com. It's going to be an add-on price of arranging for a funeral. But here's the clue. You can go directly to legacy.com and publish an obituary. That's the place that most of them would be. You don't have to go through anyone else. You can do it yourself if that's what you want to do. You can go directly to the paper. You have choices. But again, there are prices, and legacy.com is become the norm. But in a couple of years, it'll be something else. They're not permanent. And then also, if you want to write everything that's important to you as a family or as about your person or about yourself, the funeral program is a great place. You're not limited on how many words you use or how many photos you use. So your obituary could be in a lot of different places. How to do it? Like, people don't know how to start. I actually just think get a piece of paper, get a napkin, do something. Doesn't really matter. It's getting started and then updating it. So, in the next 40 years, just keep updating it on your birthday. That's my advice. And there'll be so many ways you can do it, but just do it authentically the way you think it should be done. I think I mentioned this before, but it's really important. I have heard from people I know who found their parents' obituaries already written, already taken care of, but they didn't find it until after the funeral. So it's really important, if you're going to do this job and take this burden away from other people, make sure that you make copies and you give it to the people who will be making the arrangement. And when you update it, redo that. Just make sure that you've given it to someone to take that burden off them, and also not that they not have regrets later that they didn't do what you wished or include what you wanted to include. I welcome questions, and I'm going to, go off share, but I do want to say that I keep re-choosing my own picture. This is my picture right now. It was a very happy moment. We went to Falling Waters, and I had a lovely time, and I was, it's not about looking good. It's not the best picture of me, but I think that this is what I would like to leave people. But you know what? In another year, I might change my mind. So I practice what I preach. I know, and it is labeled in my papers, and it is listed in my, with my will, that where this photo is. Hello again. I would love to hear questions.
So this is the time where folks can either raise a hand, those of you that know how to use the little yellow hand. Anyway, chat is also a version that we can work with. This is a chance to throw out, there's no right or wrong questions to ask, and who wants to get us kicking? I see Susan, but you're muted, so you need to unmute.
All right.
Yep.
So, Laura, I have written an obituary. It's very professional, and I have to go back and make it personal. And I keep putting it off and putting it off. I don't know why. I mean, I wrote this a while ago, but it's not really who I am or who I see myself as. So what do you do in that case? I guess that's my question.
So this is very common, I think. I think we all, first of all, just when we write something and we finally finish it, it's like, oh no, I can't. But I find it can be helpful to have someone kind of splint with you. So if you sit down with a friend or a family member and just say, I just need to play with this. I need to work on this. And think of it as play instead of, oh my God, this is the big scary thing. But to just play a little with it with another person, or get together over, tea or cocktails with friends, and, 3 or 4 of you read each other's obituaries to each other. You'll have a laugh, you'll learn things about one another, and you might get feedback and say, you know what, that doesn't sound right to me. I think I'm going to change this. I really believe in play in this topic. I really believe in being in company, being not keeping it a taboo thing that we do in the dark of, our laptops, but let's talk to our friends. Let's talk to our families. Let's acknowledge our mortality. That is what I do, is about acknowledging our mortality and being together with others while we're alive. So that would be my advice, but also I want to validate that, yeah, this is a thing. This is hard to do. And it's kind of, if you've already done it once, that would add an extra challenge. Your beautiful words. You don't want to kill your beautiful words.
I have a friend who just died, and I don't know if she wrote the obituary, but it was so much who she was. I mean, there were academic things in there, things she accomplished, whatever, but you came away feeling like you really knew this person. And that's where I'd like to see myself going. Yeah. So I like your idea of getting together with a group of people or one person or somebody that can push you in a different direction, possibly.
I know if I was 20 years younger, I would be saying, pop it into Chat GPT, tell it that you want to make it less formal, or put it in the third person, and it will frighteningly do it for you. It'll be the best writing you've ever done, and you'll be so mad. So
I see
yeah.
Cynthia, and then Paul, and then there's a couple questions ready to go. Cynthia, do you want to go? But you're muted. You're muted.
Um, This is great. Thank you very much. I've got a whole sheet here of things I want to read and go over with myself. I'm leaning toward no funeral and no, I don't know about obit. I think that would be important, but no gathering, no, nothing like that. But I would like to do it over computer. Are people doing that now? Are they like having a ceremony so people can tune in and talk or whatever via computer? Because I have friends all over the world actually that I could never come to a funeral.
So
What?
yeah, two things come to mind. One is there is such a thing as a living funeral. So it's a growing thing where people hold their funeral while they're alive. And not necessarily critically ill, but just rounding the corner on the big things in their life and ready to retreat in some ways. So that's a thing. One. Two, yeah, absolutely. Since COVID, especially, the technology is there, the knowledge. A lot of us went to funerals on Zoom during COVID, and now it's pretty common. But can I?
Is there a website or something about this?
Every funeral director out there
Oh, okay.
can do it, but you don't have to use that. There are actually portals out there that offer this service. And because we've disconnected from the body part because of cremation, there's just a lot more out there that doesn't even need to be something you do in the death context. It's, if you have the person who can start a Zoom call and send out an invitation, then you have your
Right.
memorials. You don't have to do it with all of the formality. But can I just say that I don't know you personally, but your desire not to be, not to do all that folderol is very common. I think a lot of people feel like, that's too much fuss for me. I don't want this to be a burden. I want people to get on with their lives. Can I say that I do find that family and friends can feel not taken care of in a way by that. They can feel as if, it was not to be a burden to them, but a connection with other people who knew you, and that they want that. I think, as modest, self-effacing people who want to be polite, we don't want to be a bother. But I would submit that if there are people who care about you and they don't know each other well enough to be able to all gather without your, and they're going to need your permission to do that. If you tell them no, I have two fathers. One of my fathers died and didn't have anything. And I can say that we kind of broke the rule that we got together, but I can tell you, I really needed that time with other people. I wanted to meet the people in his life, but he was shy and he didn't want to make a big deal. And I understand that. But the reason we've always done this as humans isn't about the person who's gone. It's about the community they leave behind. So
Well, thank you. That's helpful. Very helpful.
put it in the hopper. Obviously, it's your choice. If you tell people not to do a thing, then they're not going to probably break your rules, right? But it might not be about your, some sort of ego or honoring you. It might be a need to connect with others. So I'm just putting that out there.
Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Paul,
Yes, sir. I have I guess sort of a practical question. There are at least 3 platforms that would make sense to me to offer my obituary to. One would be Legacy, one would be my current location's newspaper, and one would be my hometown newspaper. I assume that well, first of all, I'm not sure how to submit an obituary to Legacy. You've said before a funeral director would do it. If you don't have a funeral director, can you do it on your own or have somebody do it on your behalf?
You can do it on your own. And when I say you, I'm speaking of the people that will be left behind.
Right.
They may know some relationship, they may need to, so there's terrible things going on where people submit obituaries of people that haven't died. It's sort of like a threat. So there is some level of checking to make sure that, there's a trick. So you won't be doing it. Here's my advice is make sure you know how much it will cost. Make sure that you've, specified these places and pretend that you're doing it today for someone else to find out exactly what you'd need to do to get it done. And depend on it, it will change. It changes yearly. But don't just leave a list of places you want it. Research them and make sure that all three of those are available and what they would need to have. And some want to see some sort of official recognition that you actually
Right.
have died. So that whoever you put in charge of that, so whoever will be doing that, needs access to that.
And one quick follow-up. You mentioned not trying to recognize or mention every single person or every single place you ever lived or existed or company you worked for. For me, the most meaningful organization would be my college, my alma mater. Would I want to pre-send an obituary there or somehow arrange to make sure that an obituary went there that was, tailored to that audience, the alumni who knew me and others who followed behind?
I would check with them what their protocol is, get the website, exactly, or the person that you're supposed to send it to. But when we die, we can't walk ourselves to the crematorium and we can't submit our own obituaries. We are going to need others. Death requires a team. So you've got somebody who's going to be taking care of things. And you've probably got more than one. Instead of giving all the tasks to one person, I would recommend choosing people who will take care of tasks and relieve the burden on family members. But you'll have to give them all the information and know what you're asking. In time past, people, they had a church or a synagogue, and everyone, like the way things happened were the same for everybody. We don't have that anymore. So you'll need to do your homework.
So you just reminded me of one other question. Should I reach out to my closest family and friends and say, I will do this for you?
I love that. I mean, if you relieve the burden of other people, this is a mitzvah, like do this. I think people sometimes are uncomfortable, so you have to be careful. If I try to talk to certain family members in my life and say, hey, I want to help you, I'll go identify your body, they're not happy. So be careful that you're having a playful conversation about it, that you're not being and that they're willing. Everyone's got a me in their life who would do it, but you might have to be careful about who you ask. But the person that you do ask, it could be an honor to them. And that you would offer to help other people. Oh my goodness, thank you.
Let's go to Carmen.
Yes, I wanted to ask how important mentioning family members, like daughter of so and so, so and so, how important is that? Because most of the people that would read it do not care that you have a great grandmother that's still living or whatever.
Yeah, it's not for them. It's not for the people reading it. It's for the person you're listing. I mean, let's be honest. If someone would feel hurt not to be listed, then it could be hurtful. It doesn't mean you have to do it. I mean, leave people out or make it categories. I don't think anyone should expect to be listed, but there mistakes can be made with trying to make the list ad hoc. I think Mom probably remembers the time that we were trying to make a list and it went awry. I I think the key is thinking about the person being listed, being happy about it, rather than the people reading it being happy. I don't think that that's gonna cause hurt for someone to read a name they don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Sandy. And then
Hi, Laura.
Barbara.
How are you? Sandy Roth.
Hey,
I have a question. When I've been thinking about dying and kind of what's going to happen, I'm kind of obsessed about my memorial service.
Mhm.
I mean, because I've been to some memorial service that I found incredibly moving and just the things that are said about someone. But I'm thinking about writing my own memorial statement.
do
Like,
this.
if you're hearing this, then I've gone. And then, and I'm thinking like that along the lines of the obituary. Um, I would want in my memorial, because I have, ego issues, I'd want to, do something sort of Larry David-ish or something, a little on the cutesy side. And I'm not sure if that's such a good idea, if you've heard of people doing that, and I would kind of build on the obituary. But I just have this sense of somebody like my daughter or somebody going up there and reading this, you know, thing from me about my life, very similar to an obituary, but little different. So I was wondering your thoughts on that. If you've known if anybody's done that, and if so, what advice would you give? Or just say, don't do that.
Oh, no. I think it's an excellent, excellent, excellent idea. I've done mine. I've written mine.
Oh, good.
My reason for doing it, it was to relieve my family of distress and wondering what would I want and being confused. It's going to be, oh, we should always think about the day after. What's going on the day after? How many tasks have they got to fulfill? How much, what are they feeling? They're in shock, they're numb. It's a bad day. How can we make that day better? I guarantee you, Sandy, if what they get in your binder, I have a binder, that the first thing is a letter to them, which I highly advise, write a funny letter if it's authentic to you about this mourning that they are now facing, and also plan your memorial service. They don't have to do it. I mean, they can choose what they want to do. Larry David may not be available to be there, but people do it all the time. And I'm going to give you the most extreme example of someone who did, someone I know. He actually worked here at the cemetery with me and was in perfect health when he went on a scuba vacation and died. So he had a web page which described all the things that were important to him in his voice. He voice recorded it. He sang songs. He left instructions on all kinds of things. And when he did die, and we were all just like, what is happening? We had his voice literally and figuratively in our head of what he needed from us in that week. It was an enormous gift, and people do this. And I know it probably seems self-involved or, solipsistic. I don't think it is. I think it's a kindness to leave it behind. I think your actual authentic voice, acknowledging that they are going to have a morning after, is the pinnacle of death awareness and love. So yes, people do it. You should do it if you want to. And there's no rules on it, just like with these other things, but make it you, make it authentic to you.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about was about halfway through, I was going to stop and say, here's Randy Travis singing Amazing Grace, and then put that in the middle of it.
I love this. And music lists, that's another thing. I actually have my friend's, he gave me his deaf music list, and it's in
Yeah.
my,
Oh, good.
I listen to it, his death list to comfort me sometimes. And so music and who should speak and what they should speak, and they can change it. You can't control them after you're gone, but you've given them a gift.
Good, thank you.
Going to go to Barbara and then Carly.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I have two subjects. One was about the relieving the family of the distress of the decisions. And I just want to tell you about, I hope this is okay, tell you about my mom, who is a biologist, was very kind of matter of fact about dying and was very clear about the end for her. And her refrigerator for years was plastered with all the legal forms that were needed. So when the emergency people came, it was there, which was great for us. We were, and she talked about this often, she was really clear. So when I got the phone call, she lived 2 hours away. I think she was on the floor. She was unconscious. And I said to them, and they were, going to transport her. I said, if you transport her to the hospital, on my way there, I will pick her up from the hospital and remove her. And they were very respectful. They left her. I knew exactly what I needed to be doing. And it was such a gift. She wanted her body to be, to go to Boston Medical, to BU. That had to happen quickly. She had arranged all of that. So it was so wonderful. I was so exhausted. We had stayed there for 6 days to help her die, but it was wonderful. So I can't stress that enough. And I so want to do that for my children. The other thing that I want, there's the obituary for, for the general community and, to go on our sort of family archive. But the other thing is that I love the idea of a file. I have wanted to there's things I want my kids to know about me, that, a picture or two and what it means, or a couple of letters I'm a social worker, from clients about that whole thing they don't know anything about, that I would like to leave in a file. So I don't know if you could speak to that. I really care about, my kids are like early 30s, single. We're very close, very small family. And I feel really strongly about what they think and wanting them to really know me.
I can't think of a better gift than your, and it's just in the execution. So there are tools for this. I just need to stand up for 1 second. I collect organizers. So here at the cemetery, I have a bookshelf where I have all these organizers. Some are funny, some are very serious, some are dour. They all basically do the same thing, which is allow you to leave certain practical information, but also stories, where pictures are, anecdotes. So one thing is get an organizer. And I think that might relieve some of the, where is everything? And the other thing is letters. So I think I mentioned one of my dads died some years back, and I was sure this man was going to leave me a letter saying goodbye because he knew he was going to die. He did not, and I was pretty mad. And so I thought, I'm going to write letters. So I wrote 100 letters that my lawyer has them to be given out when I croak. The letter writing was actually an amazing enterprise, and they mean a lot to me. I've had to give one away to someone who was going to be dying. And I said, do you want your letter? But the bottom line here is your voice, your authentic voice, deserves to be left behind in a way that is conscious of your mortality. It's different than a letter today. It's a letter that is conscious that you're not there when they read it. And leaving that sort of thing is not self-centered. It's not egoistic. It's loving. And I would recommend it as an exercise if you feel like it. You can also just record it, voice record it. I'm actually working with a woman who's dying, and we've been working on her just recording her voice, telling stories for her child. to leave behind. This is love. It's not morbid. It's not weird. It's beautiful. So I endorse what you want to do. I endorse what your mom did for you. It's beautiful.
Sweet.
Can I
Carla,
put-
you're up.
Yes, I've been trying to get in here. Well, Laura, you will recognize this. This is something that you gave me.
It's the knock box.
Yes.
Okay. This is
And I already started to do some of the things to make your life and the rest of my family's life easier when I leave. Did you want to speak to this box?
so this is one of okay. This is one of the tools. It's called the knock box. It's next of kin. And I chose this one for them. I have other ones, but I sent them this because it comes in a fireproof box. So
Mhm.
you got the Cadillac version, Ma. I have the, the regular one.
Sandy.
This is the most expensive way to do this, by the way. There are free end-of-life planners. There are complex ones. There are very, basic. But let me show you the funny ones because there's a lot of funny ones. Can you read that?
No.
No.
It says, "Where I buried the bodies." Another favorite. I mean, I think humor is great. Sorry, it's your problem now. I'm dead. But then you could do the one from AARP too, or you can find one that's free and it's digital and you just fill it out. I like people to know they have choices and that you got to find your authentic way of doing this. The key is doing it. Like if you get it and you don't do it, thank you, Mom, you're doing it. And I have a binder myself for my kids. It says death binder, private, please, so that no one goes pawing in it before I'm gone. But I think it's a wonderful exercise of love to do it.
Thank you. Do we have another question? I mean, a question or comment?
I think I see. I think
Martha down below. I see Martha with a hand up.
Oh,
I see
okay.
a question.
And John.
On?
Okay.
Yeah,
Martha, go for it.
Martha first.
I just want to thank you very much. I'm from Holyoke and I just happened to see this online today, and so here I am. I have started this process and I lead a small writing circle of people who are writing for their children. And what you have inspired me to do is to seriously include the obituary in that list of things that are so important. I have written mine, but now I'm going to read it over and see if it meets the standards I now am learning from you. So thank you very much. The second thing I wanted to say to the woman who was disconcerted about having trouble getting to these things, I did donate my body to science. And I did that several years ago, but in the process, I lost the paperwork 3 times. And so it took me about 3 years to do it. And it was really, I realized at the end that it was just my fear of grappling with the fact that I was going to die. And once I owned up to that, I did it and it's done. But having lost the paperwork 3, I still laugh about having lost the paperwork 3 times. Thank you.
I love that. I love it. Thank you so much. I think it's not uncommon. And the fact that you kept going is really interesting and telling. I think you needed to persevere to keep going. And maybe that's just what it took. And we all can push a little harder towards.
Yeah. And there's a long list. I'm listening to you. I'm adding that to my list. I mean, I've done 3/4 of the things on the list, but my goodness, the list keeps growing on how to refine and this obituary thing is really, really helpful. Thank you.
John and then Carmen.
Am I on?
Oh,
Yeah.
wrong John.
Oh,
Which
which
John is it? Okay.
that's okay. That's me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know how many bits anybody here has written, but I've written 5 of them. I've written them for my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my wife, my ex-wife, and my daughter. And one of the features that will come about is that sometimes death is very unexpected. It's a matter of hours or days. And there's, at that point, you kind of have to wing it. Of these multiple obits that I've written, I think the only really successful one was for my wife, with whom I spent 49 years. And so I knew her story backwards and forwards. But otherwise, it was kind of, you had to kind of wing it with whatever information you had. And I just thought I would share my experience in writing obits with the group here.
Did you find the process of doing it, and I'm assuming you did it after the death?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you feel as if you were true to what they would have wanted? Were you working on their voice, or were you speaking to the people who would read it? That's a very interesting.
I really can't answer that question. I think in terms of my wife, with whom there was great long-term intimacy, yes. But no, I can't answer that question one way or the other.
Mm.
It was just the facts that as best I knew them.
Yeah, well, that's enough. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And they weren't always correct.
We do the best we can under duress.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that was Laura's point to start with, right? If you want it to be accurate, write your own. John, the other John, did you have a question too?
I had something I was going to share. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just I was my father passed away, and he left his own obituary and photo along with his other papers when he passed away. And I was tasked with putting in the paper, but it was very short. He said basically no services, and he left a poem by Emily Dickinson, which nobody understood. And he the upshot was like his girlfriend at the time, like everybody was calling her, like, asking her questions about his life and things like that. So I'm not sure what the moral of that is, but it was I don't think it was had the effect that he had intended as far as you know saying goodbye to the people he knew and his friends. But
John, do you know when he wrote it? Like, did he write it long before that time, or was it more close to the end of his
I
life?
think it was pretty close to the end. He was diagnosed with lung cancer, and it was probably within the last 6 months of his life. I think.
Because I think that makes a difference. I mean, if somebody sometimes people write their obituaries when they're in the middle of their careers. Or if you're writing it at the end. I think the difference is who we're speaking to. Are we speaking to the people that are currently in our life, or are we still in our careers and we're speaking to our coworkers? I think it matters when we write it. So I would expect that all of you would evolve, that your obituary evolve over time.
Yeah, I think maybe in hindsight he might have shared it at least with me or somebody, and could have made some comment about it. Uh, we later wrote another, like a longer story, put in the paper about him, and also I sent letters to all his friends, like with more of an explanation of kind of what happened and stuff. But
Beautiful. That's really nice.
Yeah, Laura referenced about getting a second person that loves you to look at it. And I'm sensing you would have loved to have been that person. You also kind of raised an issue that maybe is a little off from where this topic is, but I wonder how much it happens, which is, say, the kids that knew this person all their lives versus a more current friend or relationship. You reference a girlfriend kind of thing. And how long has that person been in their life, and where the strife might come in, with possible differences of opinion about how to memorialize
Mm.
or talk about this mutual loved one. I don't know if that needs any further comment, or whether it hits a chord or not, but Carmen. Oh, you're muted, Carmen.
About prices that you quoted initially at the beginning of this seminar, were they just general prices, or would it be the same in a small publication?
Oh, it was a big public, it was I think the San Francisco Chronicle, was it, Mom?
Mhm. It was the Chronicle, San
Yeah.
Francisco.
There's
The San
certain,
Francisco
I mean,
Chronicle?
This
yeah,
is,
in big cities with the big papers, expect a super
Okay.
high, and local ones sometimes, rarely these days they still charge for them often. I mean, there was a time when you could submit one and there wouldn't be no price because it was news, but that times have changed.
but Laura, didn't they have an online obituaries
Yes, when you buy
that
an
weren't
obituary,
free? I mean, that weren't, you didn't have to pay for it.
legacy.com is low or no price, and is often included with when working with a funeral home. But you can go directly if you want for a fee. The nice thing about legacy.com is that the length and the pictures, you don't have to pay as much through the ear. Newspapers are still acting as if they have to actually use ink, but things have changed. And also, we want to be able to send a link to an obituary now. Most people are not going to pick up a paper and see an obituary of someone they know. We don't live in the same city as our people and our friends. Papers are not as useful as an obituary in a lot of communities. So legacy.com and in the online versions, that's not the only one, but an online version means that you can send a link, you can post it on Facebook, you can announce it to people in a broader way, and also send them the information that they would want to know, about the family or the charities that they've sent it to, or where the funeral will be or was.
Laura,
Do we have
why do you think everybody, not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, why do you see so many young pictures of 80 and 90-year-old people with their obituary? Is that just the obvious, that we all want to think of ourselves at a more vibrant time of our lives, or what's behind that?
Well, we're not usually choosing our own, someone else's. And so they're looking for a picture. And on that slide, I have one version is where you see the shoulder of another person in the picture. And I'm like, who died here? Because they don't have any photos of themselves, especially men. They don't have a good photo, or it's not digital. That's another one, is picture of a picture, where they've taken a picture of a picture on a mantle someplace. Finding a digital picture of someone in the current time, before they became ill, because nobody wants that picture, is often not on anyone's priority in the crisis of an end of life.
Mm.
And that's why this is important. But also, people feel they looked good at one time. I don't know if it's just vanity, or this picture feels like who I am. Okay, so I'm 25 years older, but this is who I am in my heart of hearts, in my dreams. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it, but I think it's, where's the picture? What quality is it? How do we find it? And would they find it flattering? Those
Tell
are
them about your great grandmother's picture. My mom's picture.
the best picture of grandma by far, and the one that you used for her was from her barber's license. Such a
Yes.
good photo. So
Yeah,
cute.
it's great. She was only about probably in her 20s. And then there's another picture of her at her 100th birthday party. And as far as I'm concerned, she looked fabulous on that too. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
Oh, absolutely. And there's another phenomena of before and afters. So someone in their youth, and then more closer to their end of life. And I love those pictures myself because I like seeing how the picture develops of a person. So I always appreciate those. But again, it's not us doing it usually, unless you take to heart what I'm saying today, which is make a plan and make it, comport with who you are. But generally, there's the time at the end of life is often chaotic and exhausted, and details fall. So that's why I do these things, mostly for death awareness, but also practical matters.
I saw Barbara with a hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to sort of I was going to say that I think that the picture of the youth really is about how we want to see ourselves, because we, I don't feel 77. I got to tell you, just don't. That's not me. I look in the mirror. I think many of us do, and say, who is that? The other thing is that I tend to think about people as Matryoshka dolls, one of us inside another of us inside the other one. So the one I want to be remembered is somewhere there in the middle. And I think that's, it's hard. It's part of wanting people to recognize you when they read the obituary. On the other hand, that's not really who I am. So there is this sort of push-pull thing. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
So how is our time?
We're good on time, so if anybody has any questions, this is an opportunity. Otherwise, we're getting close to summarizing or winding down and thanking Laura. Going once, going twice, Carly. Oh, there's a question. Come on, Ramon. But you're muted, Ramon.
You're muted.
Okay, there you are.
Okay, I thought that part of the program today was to learn about being a doula.
Oh.
Wasn't that part of the
No,
program?
no, but Laura is a death doula.
Yeah.
She's,
So
but I don't think we advertised it that way.
See her previous program.
But-
Where did I get that? I wouldn't make that up because I hardly know what a
We
doula
did
is.
she did a program
yeah,
earlier, and you can get that on our YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, there's already one.
I would say yes. Also, Laura did a TED Talk. And Laura,
right.
where shall we get in touch with you?
I am easy to find if you Google me.
You'll find all the things and
or-
ways.
And on the it's Congressional Cemetery. You can find my email there.
And then your full name?
My name is Laura Lyster-Mensh. Oh, it's on the screen.
Yeah, I see it on the site now.
Laura Lyster-Mensh.
So just to clarify, Ramon, what you saw on the flyer was a little bit of a bio about Laura, which referenced her as a death doula. The focus of this program was on writing your own obituary.
Mhm.
But the good news is, as Carly mentioned, there is a full program and a TED Talk, and we can actually forward those to you. We can just send the recording of that program that was done about 1.5 to 2 years ago.
Yeah, I would be interested.
Yeah.
And
I would
Yeah.
be
welcome you to
interested
contact
too.
me.
You what?
I welcome you to contact me. I have handouts. I can send them to you about the topic of end of life doulas. By the way, death doula is a rude way to say it. It's technically end life doula.
Oh, okay.
I don't like euphemisms, so I say it like I think it.
Could we all get a copy of that? Because I would love to also be on the list of what you're sending out.
Well, because we don't register folks for the presentation, we don't have your emails. We can send it as we did in the last presentation through our listserv to Amherst Neighbors members. But I think, Martha, you mentioned you're not an Amherst Neighbors member. So we can, if you just send us an email telling us you want that, we can absolutely forward it to you.
And who do I send the email to? Amherst Neighbors.
You're going to send it to Amherst Neighbors 01002, which is our zip code, at gmail.com. Amherst Neighbors 01002 at gmail.com. And then we can forward that. The other thing is on our website, which is www.amherstneighbors.org. If you go to programs, you actually can click on the program and see it that way. It'll even be quicker.
Okay.
In terms of the one that was specific to the question of what is a death doula. Laura, if you want to take 2 or 3 minutes and just do a down and dirty version so folks, maybe they've heard of a birth doula, but they haven't heard of the end of life doula, to give a quick synopsis of if that's worth doing, feel free.
I would love to. I would think of a death doula or an end of life doula as a non-medical supporter of a person who's dying, who is their advocate during the process, and someone who's specifically focused on the dying thing rather than your medical care or other things. It's about that this is the end of your life. So we're all different, but for example, I sit with dying people at hospice. A lot of the people don't want to spend time with the people that are in their last days and hours. That's scary or confronting. That's my specialty, is holding people's hands. So I like to show up for people who are dying and be there with and for them. That's one of the ways that I serve. I also meet with people to help them figure out how they're going to organize themselves, or in an hour, this room is going to be filled with 30 people for a death cafe. This is something a lot of doulas do. It's a gathering that is it's like a Quaker meeting and an AA meeting, but it's about death. Put all those things together. It's a meeting of strangers in an equal basis with no agenda, and people speak if they feel called to. But the topic is to absolutely talk about our relationship with death. And so in a few minutes, that's what's going to go on here. Within the hour, people will be filing in and sitting around in this chapel, and we'll have a little bit of silence, and then someone will speak, and it will be an hour of conversation about mortality. That is what death doulas do. We face mortality head on.
Yeah.
We support people, whether they're dying or not, around the topic of mortality.
Well, actually, I've had an experience a few months ago when my, excuse me, my ex's wife was on her final hours, and I had heard a talk somewhere about being with people who are making transition. And I felt like there was a message to me to be with that person who was making transition. And it was incredible experience, beautiful experience, and incredibly beautiful transition. And I have absolutely no fear of death. And so my daughter was there and she said, Mommy said, you were a doula. I don't know what a doula is. It just came to me, and it was quite incredible. So I can be with, and if I have the opportunity to be with somebody who's making transition again, I would
That's
very happily be there.
Thank you, Ramon.
You're
That's
welcome.
I think we're winding down. Carly, if you want to,
Yes.
my
go ahead, Laura. Maybe you froze. I'm not sure.
my fear of death and dying have decreased with every time I'm with someone.
Hmm. Well,
Well, to me, this is the value of everything you do, and you're helping all of us in your
Still
own
frozen?
way get comfortable, more comfortable
I'm here.
anyway.
yeah. I'm your mom, but I just wanted to say how much respect and admiration I have for you and what you do. And on behalf of the Amherst neighbors, I want to thank you for coming today. Laura? Laura?
I think she freezes up periodically. That's been happening.
Okay. Well, let
Unfortunately.
me say that to the rest of you, that though we are a no-fee membership organization, we do have expenses. And we'd like you to consider going online and pushing the donate button, because we would like to be able to continue to have programs such as the one we had today. Also, at the end of the program, I think that there will be a survey sent to you folks. Is that not true?
You're correct. It's a very brief survey. As you sign off of Zoom, you'll see it. It'll take you about 30 seconds at most to complete it.
Right. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Mhm.